there are no Christian martyrs in this country. It is a country founded by Puritans who got kicked out of every other country because they kept trying to start theocracies.
Check.
Check. Ball sacks, testicles, testing.
It is the Lacey's Tits edition. A kitty! He's helping!
Yay! If the world leaders were highly educated in kink, would we have world peace?
It can be a little dry, but like, it's really good.
It's what lube's for. It's fine.
Exactly. Do you want the short version?
No, I want the long, big version.
Like Christian from 50 Shades. Like, that's not a dom. That's a dipshit with a flogger.
All I see is pork swords.
Why did I choose to go like all Susie Q today and you two are like dominatrix hot?
Patty, Nancy, you are such good girls. You do such a great job with your podcast and you bring so much knowledge to so many people and you made my day by having me on.
Welcome to the Apostate Sisters interview series, where we hold space for those who've walked away from their faith and are living beyond it. Today, we're joined by Lacey Bond, a post-purity culture, sex, relationship, and intimacy coach and kink educator based in Los Angeles. Lacey helps people heal from the damaging effects of purity culture and high control religion, guiding them towards sexual and personal empowerment. I first connected with Lacey at the Shameless Sexuality Conference, where her insight and style struck me right away. Raised in evangelical Christianity, she participated in youth group, Bible study, Christian school, and even graduated from Biola University. She lived the purity culture experience to the fullest. She even appeared in the 2015 documentary, Give Me Sex, Jesus. Now, Lacey works with individuals, couples, and couples plus to reclaim intimacy on their own terms. She's currently collecting stories on healing from purity culture through kink. If you've got a story, she may be looking for you. We're so honored to share this space with her and dive into a powerful conversation. Let's meet Lacey. Help the sisters keep this healing content coming. Like, subscribe, and comment. Drop some dollars, or support us by becoming a channel member or patron for extra perks.
Hi, I'm so excited to be
Welcome.
on. Thank you.
Thanks for coming and joining us today. It is very fun to get to talk to you and this very unique perspective that you have on healing after purity culture.
Hot topic.
Yeah.
Hot topic.
I know.
Yeah.
And this is Lacey's Tits edition because we had one time that we tried this once before, and somehow in the mix of that attempt, we had a big conversation about, all of our tits. So, well, okay. So Lacey, I came across you at Shameless Sexuality because you, as a coach, were there as a sponsor of that conference. Yeah. It sounds like you came out of a pretty heavy purity culture background, which clearly you've gone a full 180 from that. But something we like to do here is to take people through that process and to let them share their story to see what that's like to come to the realization of what purity culture did to them and how it repressed them and just the unpacking of it. So I wondered if you could start us out with where your Christian life started.
Well, there's a reason they call us cradle Christians.
I've never even heard that.
Oh,
good.
yeah.
That's
a
good.
cradle Christian is someone who was born into the faith, into the Christian family, and raised entirely with the understanding that your family's and like church communities theology and doctrine and ideology were like the one correct way. So my parents were evangelical. They converted in the 80s during the Jesus movement. And they wanted to like really raise their kids Christian. And so they did. And I think I'm the one that was raised the most Christian and was the most devout and like committed to that faith, like completely bought in. I think my other siblings were probably less indoctrinated or had questions earlier than I did. I have 4 siblings. I'm the 4th of 5. And so,
I was going to say, you're not the oldest. I'm surprised then that you were the most indoctrinated. That's interesting.
Yeah, I was the youngest for a while. And I grew up in Northern Nevada in a rural, pretty conservative community. And I went to Christian school my entire life, like from preschool on to middle school, to homeschooling, to high school. I went to a Lutheran high school that had, I think, 50 students in it when I entered as a freshman and 70 when I graduated.
Wow.
Yeah. So youth group, Sunday school, church itself, Christian schools with chapels, a Christian college with chapels and chapel requirements.
Saturated all around you.
Yeah, the whole thing. I'd never been to public school, which is probably a part of it. I think all my other siblings went to public school. And so from the time I was developing language and cognition in general, like I was Christian. I think I recommitted my life when I was like 8. I got baptized. And then when I was maybe 12 or 13, my Christian middle school hosted a production of Heaven's Gates, Hell's Flames. And I really didn't want to go to hell. So I like recommitted my life to Christ after that. And of course, like Columbine happened when I was, I forget what year it was, if it was 99 or 01, but I was either 9 or 11 at a Christian elementary school. And like we heard the untrue story of like a girl being either threatened or actually killed for like asserting that she was Christian, and all kinds of stories of like martyr stories, which in the US is laughable. There are no Christian martyrs in this country. It is a country founded by Puritans who got kicked out of every other country because they kept trying to start theocracies.
Oh my gosh.
Thank you for saying that so plainly, and you are so right.
Yeah, because the dominant story that I would hear learning in Christian schools about like American history was that like the Pilgrims were persecuted. No, the Pilgrims were trying to persecute other people, and none of the other governments like in the countries that they were in would put up with that BS. And so they were like, we'll go somewhere new where we can persecute other people for being filthy heathens and
yikes
them. So yeah. My high school was definitely like kind of a Christian nationalism incubator. Like before that was really a widespread movement. I read a book called The Founding Myth about this dominant theory in Christian culture that the founding fathers were Christian, that it's a Christian nation, when in reality, like they wicked were not. And they made efforts to, because these are not the same Puritans and Pilgrims that like came to Plymouth Rock, right, and were being kicked out of countries, because it was a couple hundred years later. Christian nationalism was definitely like a flavor in my high school. I was very Republican, very pro-life. I'd never really been exposed to a lot outside of that. And actually going to Biola University, for me, coming from my background, Biola is one of the top 3 most conservative schools in the country, and thus the world. But my upbringing, and not just like in the family, though the family unit was like very restricted and controlling, the whole Christian community around me was quite repressive, especially sexually, and especially socially. Like I was a very homophobic teenager. And now I'm pansexual.
Yay! Do I have one?
But yeah, like from the time I was really young, I was super Christian and super indoctrinated without really being given any space to question that, because just this is the one true way, the way, the truth, and the life, one might say.
This is the box we want to stick you in. Welcome to the rest of your life as laid out by them. You know exactly what's going to happen.
Pretty much. So I got my first purity ring when I was like 11.
Your first one. All right.
Yeah, because when I was in high school, I got myself one. I was a
Oh, I
very
feel you.
You
good
poor
Christian girl.
thing. Yeah, both of you fell into the purity ring shit, didn't you?
I did that too. I bought my own. Yep. My parents weren't doing it, but I did. Fuck.
So wild. Like
I
the
know.
mind fuck.
So disgusting.
I mean, it's that desire to be good. It's very strong.
Yeah. No, it really is. Which is why so many ex-Christians have a praise kink.
A what?
And now you're going to explain, right?
A praise kink? Okay.
Praise kink. Yes, please.
You're such a good girl. You're doing so well. Like, you're such a good girl for me. Look, like I could get more explicit, but I won't. This is not Tri-Quinn or Dipsy. A praise kink is a kink where you get off on being praised, hearing affirmations, and like good girl is the most common one that people know about, especially like from book talk. It's very common in romance novels these days as kinky content has come a little bit more mainstream. Especially in stuff that's better written than 50 Shades, because it's trash.
Every book is better written than 50 Shades. I feel you.
Every fanfic is better written than 50 Shades. So going back into my story, I discovered erotica accidentally reading Lord of the Rings fanfic when I was 14 in Christian high school.
Nice.
Oh,
and I was intrigued.
There's a
and
gateway.
like, yeah, I'm a big proponent of fanfic, and there is some really well-written fanfic out there. There's like a 600,000 word Star Wars fanfic that does a better job of like explaining Snoke and like the whole fucking, I don't want to get to, this is so nerdy. Like there are fanfics that are better than the works that they are derivative of, like better at explaining the lore and tying things in. And smutty fanfics are also like, there are some really well-written ones. I don't think I paid for a romance novel until I was like 25, because I was like, but I could just read it for free on Archive of Our Own, and I can search by tags and by interest. And that's actually one of the areas that like I discovered what some of my kinks were, because Archive of Our Own has a really robust tagging system. And so if you're reading something, you can look up at the tags and see like that it's been tagged with praise kink. And then if you search for other fics in that fandom or with that pairing, and you add like, and I want it to include a praise kink tag, that's what you're going to get. So you can filter for like anything on AO3. It's really impressively built, and it's like huge repository of content. But
thank you for explaining all those details too about how women, or well, anyone can go and seek this out, because all too often we don't know what our desires even are until maybe we connect with something and be like, oh, there might be something here. Like I'm a huge proponent of smut, dark erotica. I love it. But I didn't realize how many other women did, because you Google search, what's some good books? There are women everywhere saying, I want the darkest, I want the most depraved, I want this, I want that. It is definitely, there is a niche for this.
I mean, that surprises me then about the praise kink, because I feel like I've heard so much more of the opposite of, oh, you're a bad girl, or like shaming type stuff, or there's a word for it that's not coming to mind right now.
Humiliation and degradation.
There you go. Yeah. But so I feel like I've heard a lot more about that. But gosh, I feel like get more people into a praise kink. That's got to be good for people.
It's all good for people. Kink is about designing a type of play for yourself. Like I'm a big gamer, and honestly, like I'll get into more details of like how kink works and what it is and like what the structure is. It's kind of nerdy, but like it mirrors game design a lot, because you have underlying like kink is basically the game engine that you use to build your game on, and there are different mechanics that like work under it. Like the underlying mechanic of kink is negotiated consensual power exchange. So if you're in a dynamic with a dom or you're the sub, that's somewhere where like ultimately like you're both fully autonomous humans with your own agency, but you've negotiated, okay, in this container, in this game, you are going to be dominant, I'm going to be submissive, this is what we want it to look like, these are both of our limits, and you're designing something for yourself. So the negotiation is part of that game build.
That makes sense.
Yeah. So a praise kink, like in a dynamic where, you know, you may be practicing like more emotionally soft kink rather than something that is more degradation based. Because all the different flavors do something for different people psychologically, whether it's, you know, a mental dynamic of mental domination or like, something physical like impact play or pain play. The pain and pleasure centers are right next to each other in the brain, which is why pain play is so popular. It's also a really great endorphin release. That's kind of like one of the other game mechanics if we use that analogy. But, you know, with like a praise kink, it hits really, really hard when you've basically created for yourself in your dynamic a higher power that is going to tell you you're good for doing all the things that you might know mentally are okay, but you've been programmed to think are bad. And from a baseline, that just could be just like having sex. Like you're being such a good girl. You're like feeling your body. Like, I'm so proud of you. You're able to release and just like be with me and let me give you what I know you want. Because ultimately doming is about giving the sub what they want and need. It's the same way subbing is about creating that space like for the dom. It's a co-created experience.
Mm-hmm. Wow. Yeah. Okay. And we got there because we were talking about
high
your
school
story and how this country is based on puritanical.
Yeah.
And thus the praise kink. So yeah, interesting. No, that was a very good like intro into your expertise in kink. So anywhere we want to like go that direction, that's totally fine. But I am so curious then, like what your process was.
Like deconstruction process.
Yes. Or anything else about your childhood you want to share. Because fascinating. Yeah.
Yeah. So like I said, Christian school, the whole 9 yards. And when I wasn't in Christian school, I was homeschooling. So I chose to go to Biola. I really wanted to go to a godly Christian school. I looked at Seattle Pacific. I looked at Azusa. I decided that the Lutheran universities weren't conservative enough for me. So I attended Biola. I lived in an all-girls dorm. But like in high school, I was getting all these messages about how like boys are super lustful and you shouldn't stumble them. I got in trouble at an apologetics conference once because the pattern of my bra was like slightly visible through my like Abercrombie and Fitch like burnout shirt. You know how those were like really popular in like 2007. And I was like, I felt really bad. I was like, oh my God, I don't want to distract them. But also like, I'm here to learn, like, are they this weak?
Isn't it interesting that like we're always policed and told to change things about our body and how we behave? How about we tell them to change things about how they behave? What the actual fuck? I'm like so sick of this that it always seems to fall on the woman.
Yeah.
Like, if we were laying there naked, the men should step in to protect us, find some way to cover us up, you know, keep predators away. That's what they should be doing, not taking advantage of the situation.
Yeah, there's a whole bit online about like why do you dress sexy if like not for men? Like who would protect you? It's like, well, like one, protect me from gross. Because if I'm in a queer space, I'm gonna dress so much sluttier than if I was in like a heterosexual space. Like if there are no men around, like we would be tits out, Lacey's tits out, just like slutting it up because like I love this. Because it's like, well, historically, statistically, you're the ones doing the aggressing. But also on the flip side of that is like I was seeing, like, I was a horny teenager and I was a horny teenage girl and no one ever talked about that. Not in high school, not at Biola. Like we had all these rules about what we could wear in high school or youth group or at Biola University where we were adults. Like you couldn't wear spaghetti straps. I don't know if they'd changed that by the time I graduated. You couldn't wear like shirts with like the sleeves cut out dramatically to the gym if you were a girl. Meanwhile, the men's cross country team ran their drills across the entirety of campus in nothing but their tiny shorts. And I was like, they're causing me to stumble. Like, why does no one talk about like female lust? Like that's a thing.
They think we don't have it. They think we don't have it, at least not for anyone except our future husband and then only the
Yikes.
husband? What the fuck?
To the tiny shorts, it just has me in mind of the movie Juno. All I see is pork swords.
When I see them all running like that with their things bouncing around in their shorts, I always picture them naked, even if I don't want to. All I see is pork swords.
Sorry, I have to do one more pop culture reference too. Like in the movie Mulan, where she said, like, she just see these dudes naked, you know, obviously for the first time in her life, and she's like, I never want to see a naked man again. And then all these naked guys run past.
I never want to see a naked man again.
It was great.
Well, okay, so what did you do, or how did you contextualize your teenage horniness in the extreme purity everything and like no talking about it?
I read a lot of fanfic. I felt ashamed about it. I would talk about it with my high school bestie a little bit, and she was less indoctrinated than I had been. I think one time my mom like found some of my printed out fanfic that I had like stashed under my bed and like had this talk with me about like romance novels and like something along the lines of protecting your purity. I don't remember like the specifics. I just remember getting the phone call when I was like at an evening. It might have been a youth group lock-in at church, which those are the weirdest.
Lock-in? What is that?
Oh, okay. So
boys and girls don't, you know, do anything together. Make sure you're safely protected.
No, it's like a co-ed. So it's like a big sleepover. It's like a big youth group sleepover at the church, and like you're supposed to fast sometimes, depending on like evangelical culture is really weird because there is no central governing body for evangelical churches, unlike other mainstream denominations like Baptists and Lutherans. And so like it's really kind of loosey-goosey, but there's definitely these main thoroughfare things that like, you know, like purity culture, purity rings, purity conferences, which I never went to a purity conference or a purity ball. But yeah.
I'm sorry, just the term makes me a little vomit inducing.
Which one?
I know, purity ball.
Purity ball. I want to host an anti-purity ball in LA. And
how about some pure balls?
That's a great idea.
That's just how I frame it for myself whenever I go to like a really queer drag show. I'm like, hey, anti-purity ball. Post-purity.
I know, right?
I am amazed. I am amazed by your transformation, and honestly, I would be curious to see what you like looked like and how you presented yourself back in the day compared to what you are now.
I had a pixie cut in high school. The boys teased me for looking like Clay Aiken. I was really cute and like fey looking, but I was definitely like a weird kid. But I definitely like presented myself as like a very good, by the book, by the rules Christian girl. And like I took my Bible minor at Biola seriously. I transferred into the school because I had homeschooled and then I had some college credits already. But as a transfer student, because Biola requires a 30 credit Bible minor to graduate, they had this Bible Bridge program. So I took like 6 units from Moody Bible Institute like before. And then they had like, the Moody Bible Institute was separate. It was to augment my credits as I transferred in because I needed to graduate in 2 years. And then Biola has a Bible Bridge program for incoming transfers where you take like 6 credits over the summer because 30 credits is a lot. Like annual tuition at Biola is like, I think it's like 30 grand.
Oh my God.
It's really expensive. And it is like a solid education. It is also just like an extremely conservative Christian education. But noticing that dissonance between like the messages that girls were getting and the messages boys were getting, while I'm like, but I'm like turned on by stuff and like no one talks about this. What gives actually led to like my senior thesis, well, not thesis, but like senior capstone project for my undergrad degree at Biola, which was the assignment was to do a counterculture perspective against a dominant culture. And pretty much everyone else did like a Christian perspective contrasted against a dominant secular perspective. And I was like, you know what I'm going to do. I'm kind of tired of this cognitive dissonance. And I think it's unbiblical and doesn't serve women, this silence around female sexuality in the church. So I basically wrote a sex positive counterculture contrasted against like the dominant evangelical culture. And, you know, I backed it up with scripture because like,
That's awesome.
yeah, exegesis is, which is the practice of interpreting scripture, is really depends on like how you want to interpret certain things and of your understanding of the original text and your understanding of the socio-historical context that it comes from. Which is why, like, if we get back to the concept of hell and Jonathan Edwards, I'll get into how that's not a biblical concept. But the Almost Heretical podcast has a great 3-parter on deconstructing the idea, the modern American, specifically idea of hell as an eternal conscious torment afterlife. Like they cover it excellently.
Okay. That's a sticking point for so many people. So that's good to know.
Yeah. And it's the central point of most churches' doctrine is atonement theology. Where that's that substitutionary atonement of like Jesus dying on the cross for you because you've got original sin because of Adam and Eve, and you deserve to die and go to hell and burn forever. But that was like an eternal conscious torment hell is not an idea that was present in ancient Israel, ancient Greece, ancient Rome, any of the cultures that the Old and New Testaments were written in. There's a really great cosmology episode of Almost Heretical that goes through like, here's the ancient cosmological ideas that were present in Israel at the time where these oral traditions were happening. That has a really great through line into that 3-part hell series, because understanding the audience and source culture for the biblical texts is really important. And I do have to thank my high school and Biola like for that, even though like obviously they're still part of like a really damaging evangelical culture, particularly with regard to purity. That is not like, I don't even know where the evolution of purity culture began, but I blame a lot of it on like James Dobson and Jerry Falwell and the guy that founded True Love Waits. He's like a Florida youth pastor who's still around in ministry.
How was your sex positive thesis or write-up received?
I got an A. I'd found a sex positive, like sex educator named Gina Sanukian, I think was her name, but I don't recall, that she had run the one chapel that I went to that was about like female sexuality. Because I've been to so many about male lust and masturbation, struggling with masturbation and porn addiction. Porn addiction is not real. It's not in the DSM. It's not recognized by anyone in the sex therapy field. But like nothing about women. And so like I happened upon this and I was like, oh, cool, interesting. Like this seems edifying. And so I got to talking with her and she had this note card box full of questions that she got from girls in youth groups that were just like so remedial and so sad. Like things about like wearing a tampon being like bad or struggling with like lustful thoughts. Wow. And I was like,
that goes deep.
This is really fucked up. These are girls as young as 11. Like, and like for me, like being given a purity ring when you're too young to understand what sex even is.
Right.
Because most Christian girls are not given any useful biological sex education, let alone like the mental and emotional resources to develop their own agency, which is why they don't have the vocabulary or the mindset to identify when something inappropriate happens, whether it's touching, whether it's rape, whether it's marital rape. Because like, if you're not even given like language around your body and like, you just know that like rape is bad, but you don't really know how to identify it. It's setting you up for failure.
Yeah.
Wow.
And consent, we really need to be teaching what consent is because it's very murky. There's a lot of gray areas. It's not black and white. It's people with different communication styles.
Yeah. And there's actually a piece that I published recently on my website called Consent More Than Like a Simple Yes or No, because graduated consent is a thing. Understanding coercion is not consent is a thing.
Right.
Recognizing that like giving in is not consent, stuff like that.
Right.
And then when you do get into kinky play, like there are containers for like consensual non-consent, like simulated non-consensual play, which can include stuff just like somnophilia or free use or, on the more extreme ends, there are like role plays of like assault, which for some people is really healing to be able to control that narrative and know that you can stop it at any time. It does something for people psychologically. So yeah, the like deconstruction for me, like that was a big piece of it. And it was after Biola that I actually, I think, encountered the term purity culture for the first time, because I was on theos.com and like reading about like other people's experiences growing up Christian, the Quiverful movement, things like that, where I was like, oh, these are the names for these things. Oh, like this is kind of fucked up. And just kind of like slowly moving away from evangelical Christianity, and then slowly moving away like from Christianity. And Hellfear was like the thing that kept me in for a long time. So the Almost Heretical series like was really meaningful and impactful for me, because as someone with a very strong biblical scholarship background, because of Biola, because of Lutheran high school, because I'd been grown up with like a scholarly approach to the Bible, even though it was still with that like all scripture is God breathed and useful, I think from 1st or 2nd Timothy, that like I still was able to have that inquisitive nature about it. And so like when I found Almost Heretical and started listening to their content, I was like, oh, okay, like no, this aligns with the understanding that I've been given from conservative Christian university, but they're exploring ideas that were not presented to us. And also the content that I learned like from Moody Bible Institute, which is a little bit more of an independent institution, was very helpful. There was a book called The Prophetic Imagination that I read that explores how essentially a lot of Old Testament prophecy tended to be more about contemporaneous political commentary than it was about like prediction. And like there is a little bit of that, but like basically the short version of that is like Almost Heretical is a very well researched and well backed podcast. And like the Hellfear episodes that they had, I've shared them with people who didn't grow up Christian, and they're like, what the fuck?
Right?
Like, they teach children this? I'm like, yes. It's fucked up.
Yeah, sure is.
Yeah.
So I'm so glad you're talking about it in this way. I guess, if you had more to say, go ahead. But I'm just so curious to hone in on when it was that you were like, oh, I'm like starting to not believe,
Probably a couple years after I graduated in 2011, like by 2018, I had the final straw, and it like in that interim, I was reading a lot, spending time with fewer Christians, more time around Ren Fair was a big part of my deconstruction, like working with fair people who are like pagan and heathen, but really nice and accepting and not trying to like tear me away from the Lord. They were just like really good people, was a really good part of it. It's like part of that, like the way Christians talk about like your life being a witness. Like these people were living their life in a really nice, accepting way. And like, it just kind of got me. But over those like 5 to 7 years, because I didn't really start deconstructing until a couple years after Biola, just like that was kind of the path I was on. And then it was watching an episode from season 1 of The Boys where they go to like a Christian conference, Christian revival festival thing. And the main character, Starlight, has like grown up in this, like Christo-fascist environment. And she's well known because there's a pageant circuit that goes on for like superheroes in this world. The Boys is a very interesting show. It's a very interesting show and commentary on the US. But she's at this event, and she gets invited to like talk to like the youth group at this one meeting. And one of the girls asks her like, is it hard to like still say a virgin? And she's like, oh fuck, I have to lie to these kids. Like, I'm super not a virgin anymore. And like the youth pastor is like staring her down, like, you better say what you know you're supposed to say. And so I think she like lies to the kids and like leaves and is like, yeah, but like, my spirit is so strong or something. And like, I finished that episode and I was like even watching it, I was just like, I was one of those kids. Someone who lived this wrote this episode, because this is so specific. Like, this isn't something an outsider who has a critique of Christianity would know about. unless they've like you have to have lived it or else like worked really closely with post-purity people. And so I just like, I finished that episode and I was like, this is all so fucked up. I was never given a choice, because it's not a real choice if the other choice is or you burn in hell for eternity.
Yeah, it's not a choice.
Yeah, and like that's how the boys deconverted me.
That's amazing. I love it. Nancy often brings up movies or shows, and for a while she was apologizing, like, sorry, like thinking it wasn't valid. And I'm like, no,
it is.
When we create shows and movies, like that is our expression of our deeper understandings of our lived experiences. So it's so valid. So I love that you truly leaned into a show and found your way out of faith through that. It's great.
Thanks. I like, for a while I did still identify as Christian, just like evangelical or not evangelical, but then eventually I was just like, I don't really believe any of this, and I find it extremely damaging, both personally because of the ways it impacted the way I relate to others, and my sexuality, and then I see it in my friends, my community, the people I work with. And so I'm just like, I'm not about it, but I do still like maintain a level of biblical knowledge, just because being able to cite things for people and explain like, hey, like this passage about your body being a temple, it's actually not about staying a virgin. It's about not engaging in temple prostitution for a different religion. Now that you're in an exclusionary religion, like you can't practice Roman pagan traditions and also follow the way or be a Christian.
Right. I think that's smart too, to maintain biblical knowledge, because even Patty and I have talked about it too. Like, we really want nothing to do with it. Okay. We don't want anything to do with any religion, but it does make sense to have some knowledge on the Bible, because of, then we can actually see when people are trying to use it to control us. Like, we do need to know those things. Absolutely. And I'm sorry, I missed Shameless Sexuality Conference. I know Patty attended. That's where she met you. But can you tell me how you got, I guess, connected to Janice Selby of Divorcing Religion podcast? Because we had her on our channel for an interview, and I was so impressed with her. I love her journey. How did the two of you meet? How did you end up going to this conference?
I came across Shameless Sexuality in a purity culture recovery group that I'm in, because I'm in several on Facebook. I spend a lot of time kind of doing free education, labor, and coaching in those groups. And one of the speakers, Tessie Muskrat, had posted like, hey, I'm talking at this conference. And I saw it and checked it out and was like, oh my God, like this conference is like for me and for like my audience, the people that I work with and want to work with, who have come out, like specifically who have come out of purity culture, because it's really niche. And I really liked the programming and stuff. And I was kind of looking through it and thinking about attending. And then I was like, what if I sponsored it? And at the time it was going to be in person in Seattle, like before we had to pivot over to virtual. I was so excited to like go to a summit, because I also have family in Seattle. So I like being up there. I was so stoked to like go to a summit for this and get to like meet and network in person. So I was bummed when we had to go online, but I still was able to make some like really good connections, like yourselves included.
Yay.
Yeah. I've also connected with Scott from Horny Chapel and Chapel Probation. I think I probably ended up on Chapel Probation at one point, like the actual Chapel Probation, which is a thing in Christian colleges where if you don't get enough chapel credits, like if you don't go to enough chapels and like get your ID scanned, you end up on probation, and you have to listen to chapel recordings and fill out a form and do chapel makeups.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
My partner went to Bible college, but it was before there was scanning cards for things. But he always ended up doing the sound system. So he said he got real good at being asleep and waking up just in time to like raise the volume when the sermon was ending.
Nice.
And the music
I see him doing that. Absolutely.
That is wild. I had no idea there was like this scan your entrance into chapel. What the fuck?
Yeah, like this
Gross.
is for adults.
Yeah. Christians,
I
they do
mean-
like to police adults. It's pretty gross.
Yeah.
I mean, is it any wonder then with all that coercion and policing of people that kink does find its way into the healing process once you've come out of such a thing?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I
Ooh.
think, yeah, to add to that point too, and I'll reveal sort of a thing of mine of the whole like consensual non-consent. Consent is in there, but I feel like in a way it was kind of stripping me of choice, right? I never really fell into the purity culture, but I definitely felt that guilt and shame of like, man, I am a sexual person. I lust after a lot of people and I have all these different thoughts to like, what if just the choice was taken away from me in a way? And then I don't have to feel guilty for feeling all these things, right? And Patty and I had discussed it at length and like, this shit runs deep. It just, it's one of many things that maybe we can zero in on and see where it stems from. But then you explain everything so nicely and like, well, here's what's going on here. So yes, eager to learn more.
Yes. Yeah, no, that like that revisiting that lack of agency in a way that makes it feel safe is definitely a thing for a lot of people.
Okay.
Yeah, and like one of the reasons that I'm writing the book I'm writing, which is on healing from purity culture through kink, is to gather stories and data on like what kinks and types of play appeal to purity culture survivors specifically and why. Because like there are certain flavors that a lot of us have, because a lot of times, not all the time, but like kink is almost like a trauma-informed intervention. Like you should not do it instead of therapy, but there are therapeutic aspects to it. There's a therapist and pro dom, Nicole Double L on Instagram, who's writing a book on kink as like a therapeutic intervention because of like the mental dynamics, the freedom, the focus on consent and agency, and then like the physiological response to various types of play, whether it's mental or physical. Like for impact play, like getting like being struck or spanked or flogged or whatever lights up a bunch of sensations in your body, and the interplay between those and like your brain chemistry, like generally like it creates an endorphin buildup and release that is often like you also have to engage in aftercare in whatever way is appropriate for like your partner and the scene, because when you have an endorphin buildup and release, when you come down from that, you can experience an emotional drop, which in kink is called either sub drop or dom drop. So just like having a space to make sure that like, hey, like you're safe. You just had this big up and down, like it's okay. Do you need water? Let's hydrate. Let's snack. Let's cuddle. There's a variety of different types of ways that you can do that. But like there's so much going on physiologically and emotionally when it comes to kink that like there is, I think, a lot of therapeutic potential there. I'm not a therapist. I'm a certified coach. I'm not a licensed practitioner, but I work with sex therapists, and I have been to a lot of therapy, and it is something I find like extremely valuable. There are definitely people that are like, kink is my therapy. And I'm like, no, it's not. See a therapist. You should not do this. Like when you're dealing with power exchange and like different types of physical play that carry intrinsic risk, and risk mitigation is a big part of kink. Like you should not be like treating it like therapy if you don't have a therapist.
Well, because what if the kink is maybe wrong is the wrong word, but like a kink that actually isn't healing you in some way, like maybe somebody that got the kink wrong, maybe they're enjoying it, but
healthy coping mechanism.
Okay,
yes,
that's what I was trying to get to. Yeah, something actually unhealthy that isn't fixing any of your traumas. Okay, because people can get it mixed up, correct?
Yeah, and if someone like doesn't understand the intricacies of power exchange and consent, like they could end up violating consent and like actually harming someone. And the difference between like hurt and harm, like becomes really important when you're talking about like in kink scenes that carry more physical or emotional risk. Like a really intense degradation scene like could fuck you up if you like don't get the appropriate aftercare to kind of transition out of that space, or a really intense physical impact scene like could hurt you if you don't know to negotiate around like an injury or like chronic pain. You could actually like cause lasting damage to a person. And so there's a couple of approaches to consent and risk in kink. Like the overall one is safe, sane, consensual. That's kind of the baseline. Like understand that what you're doing is not like, don't be doing some dipshit stuff. There's also RAC, which is risk aware consensual kink, which is kind of in line with safe sex versus safer sex, where it's like, okay, there's not ever gonna be a way to completely like remove all risk, but you can mitigate risk. You can lower your risk profile through things like negotiation, communicating about injuries, and like for safer sex, if you're including sex in your kink play, testing, disclosing status, using barriers, engaging in types of play that don't have fluid exchange, whether it's sex fluid or like blood, because blood play is a thing. Yeah, there's a lot.
I feel like, not that I am very well versed in all of this, but I have always felt like people in the kink community are probably should be our community leaders when it comes to understanding consent, because you know, like BDSM and everything, those are so much more important, I guess you could say, for that consent and like very clear communication and negotiation to be in place. And so I find that people who engage in that are maybe the best equipped to help the rest of us understand what consent actually looks like. Do you find that to be accurate as well?
Yeah, totally. There's actually a really helpful acronym for consent in kink, which is FRIES: freely given, reversible, informed, enthusiastic, and specific.
Nice.
I've heard of that.
Yeah, it's in my consent piece on my website as well, where it's not just like yes, okay, or like well, fine. Because kink is predicated on agency, autonomy, self-exploration and acceptance, and consent and negotiation, like there is a much more sophisticated and nuanced understanding of consent when it comes to sex and when it comes to interacting or engaging in non-sexual like kinky play. Like if you're just doing sensation play, like all of it has to be consensual and requires an understanding of each person's like bodily sovereignty, which like really should be part of sex in general. It should be, but it's all not.
Indeed.
Or it's a really simplified understanding of consent.
Remember somebody in this community talking about some poster they had seen like at a college, which good on the college for doing that. Talking about consent and all the different ways that they could be violations of consent, such as pulling away from someone, or if one person is crying or not engaging, just like sometimes, it's not as simple as saying, no, I don't want this. It's you can push back on other ways as well. And I remember the poster. It was a really beautiful poster and it resonated with her. It's kind of along the lines of like that list you had just given.
Yeah.
As well.
That's a great poster. Yeah, like consent being revocable or changeable is a big thing, and like looking for signs of like nonverbal signs changing consent. Like just because someone's not saying no doesn't mean they're into it. Like there is a freeze response, there's a fawn response. Like you're not always gonna like fight if you're feeling threatened.
Yes. Well, and it ties directly into purity culture too. Us women especially are taught not to use our voice, not to trust our own mind, because you're not supposed to do that. You're supposed to trust God and like, wait, what's going on here? I've never been used to actually like defending myself and saying, no, I don't want this. So
that's where I was going to go. Cause that like it's conditioned into girls. I feel that, you know, like I've had that happen to me, the response of like, well, I don't want to offend him. I don't want him to think I'm upset. You know, I've got to like make sure that I'm making everything smiley and smooth. And I find that to be so incredibly destructive to women, especially. And I can't imagine how much that must be magnified for people who are queer. But what do you see that as a major point in purity culture? Or like if you were to lay out, you know, the major points of purity culture that inhibit someone's ability to engage healthily with consent, what would that be?
Oh, yeah. I mean, that is definitely a big one. Like Christianity does not, and like not all purity culture is Christian, and not all Christian cultures are heavily purity culture based, but for the purposes of like this hot take, I'm using them interchangeably. Christianity does not encourage healthy boundaries, period.
No.
I was having a really great convo with a guy of Jewish descent when I was up at Kink Fest, and he was like, you know, it always struck me as like someone from a different religion that like in a religion where the ultimate like holy bestest act is, you know, Jesus dying on the cross for atonement theology, like being this ultimate like self-sacrifice, dying for everyone else, it must be really hard to develop healthy boundaries. And I was like, man, you're correct.
Yeah.
Like
I never thought of it.
To say like I want this or I don't want this, if it like runs counter to like what your parent or pastor or teacher like says, is really difficult. With purity culture, we are taught that our bodies are evil, whether it's like because they're causing, if you're a woman, because it's causing the boys or men to lust after you, or if you're a girl, causing the adult men to lust after you, which is not your fucking problem if you're a child. That's their problem. That's them being fucked up.
Right. It was because of what you wear. You looked too good. I just couldn't help myself. Boys will be boys. We've heard it all before.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. How do you think people can get more in tune, like with each other? Because obviously it's a partnership. You can have multiple people, but like, I think so often a lot of men especially are just kind of taught, or like they learn to just take. They want something and they take it, and they're not really focused on the other person. Or, you know, I've met men that aren't interested in pleasing women whatsoever. They know what they want, they take it from you. But what about like a genuine person who does actually care about the other partner? Like, how can they get more in tune with interacting with this other person? Verbal, nonverbal, all of that.
That is a really great practical question.
Communication styles are different, cultures are different, backgrounds.
Yeah, I mean, coaching is a thing that
I know.
Yeah, like,
and maybe it's a loaded question.
One of the reasons I do coaching is to help people relate to each other better.
Right.
But like, if we're talking, okay, because we could be talking about like interpersonally communication, or we could be talking about like sexually, and like it kind of starts with, I mean, I talk to more women than I do men. But I think for both, it kind of starts with developing a better understanding of like your own body and desires, which for women, at least, like we're really discouraged from doing this in general. For men, I think there is more of an, especially in Christian culture, that like you're going to stumble and you're going to be exposed to like porn or whatever. But discovering like, what just
It's our flesh pussy.
Gotcha. So distracted. Getting more in touch with like your desires and what actually feels good for you, rather than like following the script. And like I do encourage people to like read romance, listen to audio erotica, like I'm not anti-porn, but I would probably recommend like get your porn like from small batch boutique distributors, not super mainstream stuff on Pornhub. Like,
because that's just all about take.
Yeah, and because like the production of porn of like actual explicit porn tends to not be super ethical and may not like actually may involve more coercion than consent. Whereas if you are buying your content directly from a creator, it's much more likely that like they're just doing this under their own volition. And often like you can also commission stuff and tip the creator and get like exactly what you want if they're willing to do that for you. But like, yeah, no, that's such a broad question. I wish I had more. It's a really good question. I wish I had more of a like concise answer to it, but it comes from like talking to people and getting in community and engaging with material. Like, I mean, I have a lot of kink books that I recommend to people, like, but in terms of like straight up, like basic, like relating and like sexual communication, like honestly, the Gottman Institute is like my go-to for relational content, both like just interpersonally and like partner communication and like sexual communication. They have a whole like workshop or workbook series on sexual communication. And I found Gottman's work to be well researched and like well presented. It can be a little dry, but like it's really good.
But if the content's good, yeah, that's
what lube's for. It's fine.
Exactly.
Yeah. You're welcome. Okay, so
that in there.
This seems to me like a relatively short amount of time that you are someone who has gone from, kind of building some sex positivity for some years before you let go of your Christianity entirely. But now you have traveled down this road to where you are a coach for people like singles, couples plus, which I assume is polyfamily type and like constellation type situations. And now you're writing a book. So I would really love to hear, if you're ready to talk about it, take us back if you're not, but I would love to hear about this book you're writing. And if you're looking for input for this book from our audience, let's hear about that too.
Let's throw it out.
Yeah. So the working title of this book is Good Christian Girl, but Christian is just crossed out. Yeah, I'm a good girl. Thanks. I'm also kind of a brat, but mostly a good girl. And it is an exploration of how purity culture survivors have found healing through kink, because like I've talked about, like the framework itself is so antithetical to the harmful ideology and messages that we get about our body and our agency in purity culture, particularly evangelical Christian purity culture, that a lot of people simply find just like a freedom in like this framework, as well as finding healing or resonance or recovery. Healing's kind of a squishy woo kind of word, but I think it's got a general like understanding in the zeitgeist. People can find healing from like certain types of play that like scratch whatever itch is in their brain. And purity culture survivors have, I think, some commonalities in the itches that we have in our brains. Like the praise kink is a big one, because when you are establishing a kinky dynamic with a power exchange, you are putting someone in the higher power position, which, yeah. So
I've not heard it described that way. Fascinating. Sorry.
Yeah. No, I haven't either, but like I do think it's true, because you are choosing to, operating from a place of like ultimate equality, like you are choosing to submit to someone else that you have put in a position of power in that container, whether it's like a scene or an ongoing play partnership or like a long-term dynamic with that person. And having that person give you the types of messages that your higher power as a child, whether it was like a parent or God or whatever authority figures were telling you was like bad or wrong. I think that being in that particular power structure and having that higher power help you flip the script on like the things you were taught were wrong, but no, are not wrong. having them reinforce that for you, especially if it's like a caregiver type dynamic, because I do think a lot of purity culture survivors didn't receive the type of care that we needed as kids. If it's coming in that caregiver dynamic, I think it lights up something really specific. And that's like kind of more aligned with my experience, because I do gravitate more towards like a care-based dynamic and like softer types of play. But like, I'm not the only ex-Christian post-purity person who is into kink and has found it restorative. And so as I was exploring kink for myself, I had other, post-Christian friends that were in the same kind of exploratory phase and like finding stuff and comparing ideas and being like, oh my God, this is really hot. That's really hot. Like kind of comparing like our different kinks and having conversations about why we thought different things worked for us. And you don't have to engage in this level of like navel gazing about your kink. I'm just a sex nerd, so I do. And not all kink is sex based. It doesn't always include it. It's just that, like for me, I see kink as negotiated adult play. But 99% of adults are allosexual. So like, and sex is fun. So yeah, it's probably going to show up in play because it's enjoyable. It gives you endorphins and dopamine and like all the like oxytocin good feeling chemicals. Like, so it's kind of a big interplay. So
those are two things.
Yeah.
Can you define allosexual?
Oh yeah. So, if you have a sex drive and you like having sex, you are allosexual as opposed to asexual or gray sexual. I don't know where demi falls on that spectrum, but the spectrum would be asexual, gray ace, demisexual, allosexual. There are plenty of ace people who are also kinksters, and they just don't include sex in their play because like that's not a thing for them. They enjoy the power exchange. They enjoy the sensation. And it's just like not about sex for them.
And sex, you're just strictly talking like penetration. Like there are some people that just don't want to be penetrated, correct?
No, I'm talking about any kind of genital stimulation.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Yeah. For me, sex is more expansive than just penetration. So I had this little like mini lecture that I did one time with a partner because we were debating. We realized we had a semantic difference in what we meant when we said sex because they like for them it was like only penetrative. I'm like, no, like I'm talking because like they were like, well,
that's
like,
usual the case,
yeah, and they're like, well, like I'm too tired for sex. I'm like, they're like, but I'm not too tired for like these other things. I'm like, well, I consider those other things sex. So like, let's go through a list. And like I was ratting at them really hard. I was just like, do you consider this sex or foreplay? Okay, what if you weren't straight? Like, is finger stuff not sex? Like, what if you're a lesbian? What if you're having a sapphic sexual experience? Does it not count because it's just fingers? Does it not count if you're just doing oral? Like, does it only count if you get off or if the goal is to get off? Because goal-oriented sex is not always like super great or helpful. So when I say like there are plenty of ace people who don't involve sex in their play, I mean that there are plenty of people that don't include any kind of sexual contact or genital stimulation in their play.
Got it. Thank you. Awesome.
Sex is weird and hard to define because people don't talk about it that much.
I mean, purity culture seems to know exactly what sex is. And obviously, that's been saturated into our culture and everyone thinks, nope. Vaginal sex penetration is the only way.
Yeah, what about rimming? Is that foreplay?
Exactly.
Or is that sex? Because there's a lot of people that do
rimming.
Yeah, I did say rimming.
Rimming, yeah.
Like there's plenty of people that will like do vaginal penetrative sex, but like would not engage in rimming. And then there's other people for whom rimming is foreplay.
Yeah,
true.
Do we need to define what rimming is? I don't want to.
Not for us, but you're welcome to.
You can Google that.
Anyone watching this has the internet, yes.
I remember when I taught my husband the term docking, which is hilarious because he still has his foreskin. Now it's an ongoing joke of the docking.
Nice. I love silly.
You gotta have
I
that.
love
And no,
silly
I'm not
sex stuff.
explaining it here either. Yes, internet folks.
You can Google this. We're not putting it on our podcast. We want it to be publishable. So the goal with this book is to encapsulate that post-purity experience of like, it's going to include like, here's what purity culture is. Here's like the agency, autonomy, negotiation, consent that purity culture robs from us, that kink provides, and then get into the various flavors of kink that post-purity survivors are drawn to and why. And I'm planning on working with like kink-informed mental health professionals on that piece of it. I'm going to be asking, people for their experiences and their thoughts on like what it does for them, whatever their flavor or dynamic or type of play is, like what appeals to them, what it does for them emotionally. But then also, especially as like, I know there's a book coming out in 2026 that Nicole L is writing on like kink as trauma intervention, integrating those stories with current psychological research, because like it is a real thing.
It's really important work you're doing.
Yes.
Thanks.
It's making me think of a friend of mine in town here who has a dungeon, and she will say that she's noticed people who grew up Catholic gravitate toward like a spiky kneeling pad because of their traumas of, kneel, stand kind of stuff in their upbringing. So I am so curious to hear what kind of research you pull together about what people who went through a purity culture gravitate to. I mean, the praise kink absolutely blows my mind. I will tell you that. So I very much look forward to what else you uncover here.
Me too. On like reaching out. So my website is intimacylacey.com and my email is lacey@intimacylacey.com. And my Instagram handle is the same. It's @intimacylacey. And so I'm very reachable on those platforms. I should have a page up on my website with an interest form for participating in that research as well, so that I can get my cohort together and we can start doing research together.
Good. And all of that will be in the description of this video.
Yeah.
Perfect. And the research part sounds so exciting, just to be able to talk to people and hear their stories. Oh my God, I love that part.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And you probably, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm designing a research survey with someone I'm connected with who does like robust qualitative research. And I'm really excited about that because like, I want it to be properly researched as like a resource for people and not just like me pulling together stories, because my background is not in that type of research. But I want to make sure that it's like a resource and like a place for people to find community and not feel alone and identify with it.
Yeah.
Okay. Are you seeking to empower people to work on their traumas with kink? Like, are you hoping to suggest it to people who hadn't thought about it? Or are you looking to create a healthier kink for people who are already there?
That's a great question. When I started thinking about writing this book, it was around just kind of like explaining this phenomena. And I definitely do. I intend to, as this form comes together and like as I see, or as the format and research comes together and I see like the trends, I plan to write about each of those flavors of kink more at length and explain like what they are and like what it does for people and why. So that, like if it is something that appeals, like the book will also have practical content on, okay, like if you're not already in the kink world, like this is how it works. This is how you can find things. Short version, create a FetLife account, search munches in your area, and meet people in real life at a social event that's not designed for play.
That website is still operating, huh?
Oh yeah. it still looks like it's 2004 over there.
Oh, really?
Oh yeah.
That's funny.
There's no algorithm. It's great. But yeah, like I do want to, and like as a kink educator, like I want to foster learning about kink and like I want to foster like people coming into the community who have a sense of like why and a sense of safety around it and a sense of comfort like in like entering it. Like, yes, it is like a foreign, weird place if you've never really been exposed to it, or if your only exposure is like book talk or dark romance fiction. But like I also want to contribute to the general body of work around kink that destigmatizes it. And like there are plenty of great books on kink, like Dossie and Janet, who wrote the bottoming and topping books, are excellent. Like Anton Fullman's The Heart of Dominance is excellent. These are books I recommend to anyone interested in kink, because like, yes, reading fiction is great, but a lot of times kinky fiction is not written by people who practice kink. And I'm also available as a kink consultant for your romance novels if you are writing one.
That's a great service.
Yeah. So yeah, that's a great question about like, what is the goal of this book?
Yeah.
So do you think, and maybe you already answered it, but maybe just to sum it up, do you feel it's best a person, because this goes really far back, there's some people that don't even really know what purity culture is and how much it has affected them. Like, do you think it's better that they really like deconstruct all of that through therapy and then get more into the kink? Or do you think that can work simultaneously? Like just get right into it without actually maybe processing, the emotional aspect of it. I don't know if I'm wording that right.
For a therapist.
Oh, okay.
My opinion as someone who's been to a lot of therapy, who is certified in coaching, who is a kinkster, is you don't need to have fully unpacked and like healed everything in yourself to engage in kinky play. What you do need to do is understand how kink works and what the mechanics of the game are. By researching, by not just jumping into a dungeon head first, by like going to a munch, which is a social gathering that is not play-based, getting to know people as people, not as objects. Like munches actually tend to have very strict rules around like, hey, this is not a cruising space. This is not a meat market. Don't just jump in and like be like, what are your kinks? Are you on FetLife? I got a guy kicked out of an event for doing that to me, and he was doing it to a bunch of the other femmes. And I was like, hey, this dude is making all the femmes uncomfortable by just like jumping at us and like asking what our kinks are immediately. Like that's not actually appropriate. Like you kind of have to be like, hi, I recognize that you're a person first and not just like a kink dispenser. Yeah. So like following creators, reading books on it, like you don't have to have like gone to a bunch of therapy and like healed yourself to engage in it, but like you do need to understand basics of how it works.
There's a lot here to unpack. I think the idea of just being looked at as an object that's been a struggle for me. Like we're just a tool, we're just an asset, we're just something to be, used and discarded. Sometimes there's this horrifying term in the military, because I was in the Army for 10 years, of being called as a woman a clearing barrel. Yeah, where you're basically just, ensuring your rounds. Clearing barrel is before you go into like a DFAC, like a dining facility or whatever. If you're like overseas, you're carrying a loaded rifle. You have your M16 on you, but you need to clear your rifle before you go into a building. And so you drop the magazine and you clear in this barrel with sand before you go into the whatever building you're going into. And women got labeled as clearing barrels. So it's shit like that we it's
ultimate
horrible. It's
objectification.
Horrible.
I guess I'm kind of curious. We've mentioned Google a couple of times, and I would love to have you, like, I had not heard the word munch. So could you give anyone in our audience who is curious about this and maybe kind of doesn't know where to start, and the internet can be a weird place, so like what are words other than that that they can use when they're Googling so they find good information?
Oh, that's a great question.
Like, give us a glossary, Lacey.
I was just going to say glossary.
Do you want a glossary? Let me open up my website. Hang on. No, intimacylacey.com / about-BDSM is actually an informal primer that I wrote. I can I'll read a little bit of it. Like, kink is a niche, and so like as such its definition and that of some of the terms can vary a little from person to person, but it's based on communication and clarity, among other things like agency and consent. So in my primer, I'm providing what I understand to be the dominant definitions and interpretations of major kink concepts and terms. So I talk about kink versus BDSM versus fetish. I kind of place both of those things under, like, I see kink as an umbrella that BDSM and fetish are under, but historically they've been used in both interlapping. Actually, I really like that word, like overlapping or interchangeable. And sometimes people have a little bit of differentiation. And I actually have a whole kinky vocab list. A good place to start learning is bdsmtest.org, which is just like a 10-minute like bullet form test where it'll ask you a variety of questions on how you feel about certain activities in a way that's like accessible language that's not super what's the word, jargony. Let's see. We talked about consent, dominant. Dungeon or studio is a professional and dedicated space for like kinky play or socialization. Some of them are members only. Some of them require vetting. All of them should value privacy and safety. Fetlife.com is an old school social media website that a lot of people go on to find events or to connect with people. Limits is a big one that you might not necessarily have the framework for, but limits are the boundaries someone has around what kinky or sexual activity they're comfortable with and willing to do. There's hard limits, which are things that you absolutely will not engage in or won't do. And then soft limits, which are areas that you might be willing to consider including, but they have to be negotiated, or it may be an area that like requires extreme caution. So if it's like, okay, like I'm into impact, but don't hit me here. Like,
sure,
okay, impact is a soft limit that has to be negotiated. I have chronic hand and arm pain. If I'm negotiating something like a rope scene with someone, I disclose like, hey, I have limited range of mobility and I can't do boom, 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 boom here. And if I'm topping someone, if I'm doing impact topping, my aftercare requires an arm massage from you because like I've just done something that could
negotiate.
Yeah. We've touched on munches. Negotiation is the collaborative process between a dom and a sub to agreeing on boundaries for the player dynamic. A play party is a party where kinky people go have fun. Sometimes they're hosted at dungeons. Oh, I just found a typo on my website. Thank you. Sometimes they're hosted privately. Power exchange is something I've talked about, but not really broken down in here. It's a consensual and negotiated relationship dynamic where one person, the dominant, is given control to exercise authority over their partner who is acting as the submissive, and the sub willingly relinquishes some or all of their power within the container of the kink scene or dynamic. Power exchange or power dynamic is the foundation of kink, and it's based on communication and trust. So both people can explore desires and boundaries within a generally safe and structured environment rather than just like jumping in and doing shit to each other. Let's see. Safer sex. Safe word. A safe word is an agreed upon word that either partner can use to stop a scene. Actually, anyone in a scene can safe word at any time for any reason, whether you're a dom or a sub. There's
and that's like drop it like it's hot, right? Like everybody just stops.
Just stop. Yeah. There's also a traffic light system that a lot of people use that is red, yellow, green. Green is like, we're good to keep going. Yellow is pause and adjust, or pause and determine whether we need to stop and go to red. And red is like, stop. The scene is done. Transition into aftercare. Check in. Figure out what's going on. And whether you need to like fix anything. Scene is a negotiated kinky session or encounter. So if you're scening with someone, you're playing kinkily with them.
Kinkily.
Let's see.
Good word.
Yeah. Dominant and submissive, I feel like I've touched on enough, but I want to also touch on topping and bottoming. Sometimes these are used interchangeably, where dom and top are the same and sub and bottom are the same, but not always. So sometimes you will have a power bottom acting as a dominant, and their sub is topping them, but like as a service sub, they are doing it under the direction of their partner. So for that reason, I tend to prefer to use dom and sub rather than top or bottom. But it's really niche. Have I said anything else that we think I need to define?
Yeah, I don't know. I guess I just was hoping for any words that people might need when they're trying to look this up, you know?
How do they know what to look for? Yeah.
Kind of depends on, yeah, no, this is a great question because it's been so long since I was like in that level of introductory exploratory space.
An expert now.
I know. But like if someone is wanting to learn about kink, what's the website? I mean, FetLife actually has some decent educational resources on it. I would actually recommend the New Topping or the New Bottoming book by Dossie Easton and Janet Hardy. Or The Heart of Dominance if you want to. Oh yeah, description. So the New Topping book and the New Bottoming book are both guides to topping or doming and subbing or bottoming that kind of go through the full range of different types of play. And they also include a pretty good breakdown of like the mental space and the framework around it. There's another book I mentioned earlier, The Heart of Dominance by Anton Fullman, that is more of like a mindset exploration of doming overall, which is a great read for doms and subs. Subbing is a skill just like doming is. It involves a level of responsibility just like doming does. There are also like online educators like Rosie Quartz on Instagram posts a lot of kink education content. I'm hoping to post more. My friend Remy Thane Kinbaku posts educational content both just on his Instagram, and he has a Patreon, I think. And he does like long form videos. He's a shibari specialist, like specifically Kinbaku shibari. He's really good. So for me, it's less about Googling and like more about recommending content creators to follow.
That's fine. That's really
because like, yeah, if you are Googling around for kink stuff, like you're probably going to find stuff from Cosmo that is probably not super well researched. Chatting with the Lightkeeper is another good creator. There are a few that I would recommend. I just kind of would have to pull up my Instagram, but that's actually like kind of my favorite. Trip Under Me is another, he's a dom content creator whose stuff I really like. I'm hoping to do some lives with him soon. That would be really fun.
Cool.
Yeah.
Okay, weird question. If the world leaders were highly educated in kink, would we have world peace?
Yeah, I mean, if they had like a higher operating level of consent and agency, maybe. But there are shitty people in kink, just like there are shitty people in positions of power.
I suppose, yeah. Okay. Doesn't solve the problem, yeah.
Yeah. Actually, a term that is good to know about is like fake dom or fake sub. Someone who uses the moniker but doesn't actually have a functional understanding of your bodily sovereignty and the fact that it is ultimately coming from a place of equality. Because there are people out there that are just abusers using the language and being like, well, I'm a dom, and so it's all about what I want and I can do whatever I want to you. Like Christian from 50 Shades. Like, that's not a dom, that's a dipshit with a flogger.
Got it. Great clarification. Excellent.
Isn't that amazing how that got knocked off of the movie Secretary, which I love, by the way. I love the movie Secretary. And like, Come on, dude. The original Mr. Grey.
Mm-hmm. There's a really great book series called The Boss by Abigail Barnett, who was so salty about how bad 50 Shades was, and was very loud about it online. And people were like, oh yeah, do you think you could do better? And she's like, actually, yeah. Because she was doing like a chapter by chapter, like sporking of it, which is a fanfic term for just like mystery science theater style, just like commentary on a piece of fiction.
Yeah.
And so she wrote like a 7 or 8 book series called The Boss that is a kinky billionaire romance series that was actually one of my entry points into exploring kink, where it is more about like consent and figuring out what Sophie, the main character, like wants and giving it to her. And so like if I'm recommending fiction, I always recommend the Boss series because it's well written. Yeah. It's definitely still fiction, and there's definitely still kind of like fantasy elements of it, but it is much more grounded in like a consensual, respectful practice. And like another thing is like the idea of a BDSM contract. So this is in 50 Shades. It is pretty rare for someone to have a written contract about their dynamic unless you are living in like a really high protocol, like master servant style, ongoing, like 24/7, which is rare, dynamic. They're not legally enforceable. You can renegotiate them at any time. It's really about like outlining the expectations of your dynamic, more than it is about like holding someone to something that they don't understand. Because the problem with 50 Shades is that Anna is being pulled into something she doesn't understand. Christian's an abuser, and Christian does not like really give her education about it or direct her to other resources. Like no one should just be like, well, I'm your dom and you should only learn stuff from me. No, like it's a whole world where, and like that is an abusive thing. Just like anyone in a position of authority should not be like, I am the ultimate source of truth. I'm not the ultimate source of truth. In my little primer that I wrote, I'm like, hey, this is my understanding. This is niche. Like, this is just to give you like a taste of some stuff that you should know if you're thinking about entering this world. Like,
it's great.
I will say one little thing for 50 Shades of Grey, though. At least it got a lot of interest in like pop culture and got these young women talking, even though it was a terrible book, and yeah, it is more of an abusive situation, which is very scary, but it got them talking, it got them curious, and maybe they weren't realizing that there were certain things in their life that they wanted, and it ticked some box, and so then they'd start researching at that point, and then they would find something that works for them, something better than that.
Hopefully. It makes me a little worried that that's the one that caught fire in our society, and so gave sort of the wrong idea to too many people, but double-edged sword, I guess.
Yeah. I mean, you're absolutely right, Nancy. Like it did have that benefit. And like this comes up when like the book comes up in the community of like, ugh, it's garbage. It's so badly written. It's not representative. Like, but also like it did give people just like a little bit more of it's just like brought kink a little bit more mainstream, while unfortunately it was not like accurate to like what it's supposed to be. But it also got plenty of more people like interested in the scene and the community. There are also events like Kink Fest in Portland happens in April. There's DomCon in Los Angeles. Like you can go to events and attend like seminars and workshop. I went to a BDSM and the law workshop at Kink Fest. It was super good, because in areas where you're engaging in risky play, the question of harm and damage does come up, or the question of contracts comes up. And its short version is it's a lot of case law, not statutory. But yeah, the topic of contracts comes up, and she's like, you can write one for yourself, but don't like it might help you as a CYA if you get into legal murky territory, but like don't expect that to be legally binding. Like you can't make a legally binding contract that is about hurting someone else, generally speaking.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah. Like 2 different CNC workshops by Tide Red and Alan. out of Denver. One was on CNC in general, and one was on like Primal Hunt Play, which is just like grown up kinky hide and seek chase play.
Okay.
And then I went on one that was like advanced kink techniques that had like sounding and needle play and one other thing. I did not stay for needle play because I was just like, I've seen this before and I don't really, it doesn't really do it for me, but I'm happy for you guys.
Sounds unpleasant personally. Like, just go get some reflexology done. And like, oh.
I have a friend who like, that is their kink, like cupping and reflexology, both as a practitioner and as a receiver, as a like dom or a sub, which is really interesting.
Cupping.
Yeah.
Oh,
I mean, anything.
And then there's like there's online like classes and stuff that like sex stores in LA, like Pleasure Chest has classes sometimes. I went to a blowjobs class that a friend taught out of the Pleasure Chest. It was online. So like those are other
fun to go to.
Yeah. Do you want the short version?
No, I want the long, big version.
So yeah, it's kind of hard to find resources because it is like a little bit underground, but I have found that like following different people on Instagram or TikTok, as much as it is hard to deal with the censorship on both of those platforms, I get community violations all the time. I'm sure. But there are like, there's some really good content out there. And like, if you follow me on Instagram, I do reshare a lot of it. And I'm trying to, like, later this year, I plan to collaborate with other creators more when I have more bandwidth, so that we can like just get more content going. I'm planning on doing a series called Unhinged Sex Ed on like Instagram Live once a week. Just like shit your gym teacher never taught you.
I love it. I love it.
Yeah.
Oh, so good. Lacey, I feel like I have learned so much from you, and I feel like everyone will be very inspired by the things you have shared. Now, is there anything you wanted to share or wanted to cover today that we didn't talk about yet?
An area that I want to talk more about in general is kind of that like early exploration phase. And I have a class that I'm working on about it, which is just kind of that baseline sexual empowerment, self-acceptance, self-exploration, because that is more the starting point that I think a lot of post-purity women of all ages tend to be in, where it's like, you're still in that space where you've taught that like touching or thinking about your body is wrong. Cause like I have not figured out how to articulate. So I haven't really talked about it much, like on this recording, of like how I got from like that place of feeling like really ashamed and guilty for like being into like smutty fanfic, or being turned on by like sex scenes on TV. I'm actually not entirely sure how I got over that. I think just like years of exposure, and like in the course of deconstruction, I was like, well, this is all bullshit. I'm throwing out the baby. I'm throwing out the bathwater. It's fine. But
have you read Pepper Winters at all?
Mm-mm.
Oh, okay. Dark Erotica, one of my favorites. Pepper Winters, yeah. Maybe check her out. She's got a lot of books.
Okay, cool.
A lot of different scenarios that might be aligning here.
Yeah. I mean, I'm curious, like, for both of you, like, what kind of moved the needle for you to feel like that you were more comfortable in and accepting of your body and your sexuality?
Good question, Patty. You fell into purity culture like in a way that I did not. So maybe you want to start.
It's been a very slow process there, and I don't think there was any one moment where I was like, oh, I get it now. But there was a moment when my partner was on a 2-week trip out of state, and so I went and got myself a new toy. And as I was charging it up, I heard in my head, "You're bad, you're dirty." And it was in that moment, though, that I recognized it, because I think I had always heard that and just like made it shove down. But in that moment, I was like, that wasn't my voice. And so that was huge for me. That recognition of what was put into me that I was forced to accept in order to be safe in my life. and wasn't something that I had arrived at through good reasoning.
Yeah.
So just that recognition of someone else's voice conditioned into me was a big point for me to be able to start unpacking other messages that I had been given. So,
yeah, recognizing that this message is not from me, someone else put it there.
Yes.
Yes.
And it was put there to control me when I didn't have any defenses against it. And to my lizard brain, like I took it in because if I didn't, I faced, loss of safety, loss of home, loss of food, loss of, life sustaining things. And so I tend to go that direction, that I feel like we often absorb messages when it's tied to our safety most easily, and that can happen before we have language. The pushing a baby's hand away from their genitals when they're just like, diapers off, it's cold, I'm gonna touch, and then smacking it away. I've heard that story, and I think Daryl Ray shared that, and it's just so incredibly damaging when I think it gets in there before there's even language, right? Because you're not rationalizing anything out if there's not even words attached to the things that you absorbed. I always talk about our brains being like we get the pathways made, and the more you run a pathway, the thicker and more lanes the highway gets. But some of that stuff is like, when it was all just dirt up there, it was like where the piles got made before you paved anything even. And so then there's just so many layers to dig down through to realize you can rebuild it the way you want, but it has to be intentional, like going back to the things that you thought were bad and doing them anyway. And then being like, oh, lizard brain, I didn't die. Nothing happened.
I didn't go to hell. I wasn't struck down.
Yeah, it's like there's something about that, like doing it anyway, which I think a little bit of a rebellious spirit helps with that. But yeah, you've got to be able to feel the uncomfortableness, and to, instead of shying away from it. Because if we continue to try to keep ourselves safe, we're never going to push into the things that are difficult. And I don't know, to me, that's like such a linked up idea with kink in general too, because you're pushing into something uncomfortable to, like, I don't even have the right words for it, I guess, because it's like, it's such a embodied kind of feeling, the discomfort and then having the victory over it a little bit.
Interesting.
Yeah. Taking those steps seems to be how I've clawed my way through and rebuilt some of the pathways. They're not all redone.
I use that analogy a lot. The repaving the mental pathways, or paving over ones that I don't want to use anymore.
There you go.
Like that.
Yeah. That's beautiful. I like that. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was a very different experience for me. I never fell into purity culture. In fact, I don't think I was ever convinced that a deity existed. And so therefore, I had all these thoughts. I didn't have the guilt necessarily, but growing up in fundamentalism, a doomsday cult, I was just kept being told, your body is for your husband. I was caught. When you get caught masturbating, like, no, that's for your husband, this person that's already laid out for you in the future here. I was like, fuck it. I'm going to do what I want. I just got really good at lying. I got good at covering my tracks. And I didn't escape this cult, or it went away by the time I was 17 and I was on my own. And therefore, it was just a roller coaster of sexual expression. The problem is I didn't know what healthy sex was. I didn't understand boundaries. I didn't understand that it's okay for me to not want to do something, okay for me to say no, because I did have that gross kind of like, I don't want this person to be angry, especially when it came to men. I just felt like they were supposed to be like in charge and I didn't want to make them mad or something. So sometimes I just went along with things. So yeah, boundaries were a big thing for me. I was used to being just kind of treated like some kind of an object, not autonomous human. And therefore, just a lot of decisions that I think could have been better, found myself in dangerous situations, situations that were very unhealthy for me. It just, a very dark period. And while I had the sexual expression, it just wasn't satisfying. I was just still losing myself more and more. It's just, I wanted to break free. And once I got free, and I'm sorry, go ahead.
Oh, sorry. I was trying to wait.
Oh, yeah.
I just find it so interesting. Like, we're actual sisters and had, the same parents and in theory, the same church indoctrination. But I find it interesting that I took the shut it down route. She didn't really believe and took it more, freely, but without the boundaries. And so, like, even though we did almost the opposite things from each other, it was both harmful.
Yeah.
And so that's where education, what Lacey does, is so fucking important to people being
all of it together.
Healthy, happy, whole humans, including their sexual self. Like, I don't think you can really unlink it,
Yeah. And like, I like that you highlighted, Nancy, that like an unhealthy relationship with sexuality, and your own sexual identity can come from a lot of different places. Like, I really highlight the post-purity thing in my brand because it is a very specific thing that a lot of people aren't familiar with. But like, there's plenty of like maladaptive approaches to sex that have nothing to do with that. Like when we were talking about like porn and men, and like, what do you recommend for them to kind of like relate better to other people? Like, men are handed a very different script than we are. We're both handed scripts though. And like, just because a guy like knows what he wants, and like what he wants is a wham bam thank you ma'am, like that type of sex is not ultimately fulfilling even for guys. Like,
I agree with that.
It's really hard, honestly, to consistently get hard enough to just have a quick penetrative sex-based orgasm, even for men. And so like, they have this script that like, you get hard, you fuck the girl, you get off, you're a man. But like, the further you move away from that into just like exploring eroticism within yourself, within other parts of your body, regardless of gender, like that provides a foundation for you to talk with another partner about like how things feel for them. A therapist that I've worked with has this really cool like 555 based exercise, where it's just a touch based exercise. It's kind of derivative of the Masters and Johnson Sensate focus exercise, which is like a way to kind of build up from like non-genital to genital and like sexual touch for like usually like a pair of partners. But this 555 thing is you take turns engaging in non-sexual touch, and giving feedback to the person touching you who like doesn't talk during this for about 5 minutes. And then afterwards, you debrief, or you switch and then you debrief. I forget. I think she might actually be workshopping like that exercise right now. And like, honestly, in that dynamic, you're having someone service top you with touch and you're directing it, if you apply the kink framework to it. But it's really interesting because it just provides an experience and expertise. What's it called? An experience where you can develop a shared vocabulary with your partner around what feels good and get a feel for how they communicate about touch. And like, that's it's just like a really cool exercise that I like, especially because like, personally, I really don't like sensate focused. I'm very orgasm like focused as a person, because personally it's really hard for me to get off. So anything that like takes that off the table, I'm like, nope, I'm traumatized. No. So I personally don't like sensate focus very much, as my camera just like fucking has a conniption about it. But it's a really cool exercise because it is like, it's non-sexual and it's just about like building vocabulary and shared experience with each other. And I think that's really cool.
Okay. Then Lacey, can you tell our audience once again all the places that they can find you on the internet and what you can do for them?
Yeah, my handle is @IntimacyLacey on Instagram, TikTok, and Threads. I am most active on Instagram. My website is intimacylacey.com, and my email is lacey@intimacylacey.com, LACEY. I should have a page up on my website by the time this goes up with an interest form if you are a purity survivor who is in the kink world or is exploring it and wants to share your experiences for that book. I would be really excited to talk to you and put you on that survey list. And I really appreciate being on with you guys. This was really fun. Thank you.
Aww. Thank you. It was so great to meet you, Lacey. I appreciate it. Let's connect in the near future, huh?
Yes, please.
Now, to take us out, would you tell us what good girls we are?
You're Patty, Nancy, you're such good girls. You do such a great job with your podcast, and you bring so much knowledge to so many people, and you made my day by having me on.
Aww.
Good girls.
Thank you.
A titty for the road for
A
Lacey.
titty
Oh, yes.
Oh, thank you.
Oh, yes. There we go. Yes! Lacey, fifth edition. Hell yeah.
Sure.
Like and subscribe.
Like and subscribe. Woo!